Welcome everybody, welcome back to Homestead Heart. And today we're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna talk about all of these questions that I get on a regular basis. Your concerns with pressure canning butter. All right, let's do it. All right, you all, first of all, I do have some butter here that I have recently canned. And I'm going to answer your questions. Number one, and I even wrote them down because I didn't want to miss any. So I did write them down. Now, number one is burning your butter. Now, one of the key things to not burning your butter is to not overcrowd your pot. All right. Now, I tend to use a really big stock pot, right? I don't know how many quarts it is, but I'll use a pretty big stock pot, and that will allow me to melt several pounds of butter at one time. And as long as I tend to it properly, I don't have to worry about my butter burning. Because you all, if you dump a whole ton of butter in a little pot, let me tell you, the butter on the bottom of the pot is going to start to melt. All of it is going to melt eventually, right? But you all, what happens is the butter starts to clump together. When you have too much of it in the pot, it'll start to clump together, and then that will slow down the melting process. Because remember, your fire is supposed to be on the lowest setting, because this is not a rush job. You got to have patience when you're canning butter. It's not a rush job. So you want to have your fire on the lowest setting. And if you think the pot is getting too hot, you may even have to turn the fire off for a couple of minutes, let it melt, and then come back and turn it on again. It's okay to do that, because sometimes your stove, some people's stoves get extremely hot, even on the low setting. So you may have to turn it off and come back and turn it back on again and continue that melting process slowly, okay? But you don't want to dump in a whole bunch of butter, sticks of butter, pounds of butter, and then everything on the bottom starts to melt and everything up here starts to just clump together. You run the risk then of perhaps burning your butter, okay? All right, now the next question that I'm going to answer here, Mrs. H, what are all of these brown bits in my butter? It's a whole bunch of little brown specks and stuff in my butter. I'm going to show you what it is. See, I have some right here. Let me show you. Okay, maybe not this one. Oh yeah, there go one little piece at the bottom right there. But I have another one here too. I think this one has more. Okay, that one has a little bit in it. I don't know if you could see it there. This one probably has, no, I really can't see them in there. And I'm going to tell you, the reason why I don't have a whole lot of it is because I caught it in the nick of time. I was in the process of canning my butter, and I always tend to it. I'm literally right here with it when I got a phone call from tech support for a particular item. But I'm going to bring that item to y'all because I'm so excited to share it with you, but not yet. But you all, when they called, I was in the middle of my butter. They called me an hour early. I'm like, what is this? But I took the call, and when I started telling them what the problem was, forgot about my butter. And I'm like, wait a minute. I came back in here, and my butter, I could start to smell that it was beginning to burn a little bit on the bottom. If you've ever made a brown butter sauce, then you know what I'm talking about. It was just getting to that point where my butter was browning, about to brown, okay? But it's not like it scorches the pot on the bottom. It doesn't scorch the pot on the bottom if you catch it in time. And you can hardly tell that the butter is browning. But once you start to can it, you'll notice it, okay? So that's what happened to me. But I caught it, like I said, just in time. Now, is my butter ruined because I got the little brown bits in it? No, it's not ruined. It's going to be just fine. Whether you have a whole lot of little pieces floating around in the bottom or not, it's not going to be ruined. Okay? So don't worry about that. I know that's a concern, but don't toss out your butter because it has those little brown specks in it. Don't do that. The butter is going to be perfectly fine. You just got to remember, you got to baby that butter. You got to constantly stir and stir and stir and make sure that fire is on low. Don't rush it. Don't raise the heat a little bit to try to speed up the process. Don't do that, okay? Constantly stir that butter so you can kind of move around the butter that's on the bottom that might be warmer than the butter that's still melting on the top. You're going to turn that around. You're going to be, stirring that pretty good. Now, can you do just a few sticks at a time and then keep adding to that? The reason why I don't recommend doing it that way is because you do run the risk of burning it. Because again, the butter that's melted, if the fire on, right? If that butter has completely melted, well, it's done. And if you're going to keep adding more butter on top of it, you run the risk of burning that butter. So I wouldn't do it that way. I would just put it all in. Don't put, you're going to have to gauge it based upon the size of your pot. All right. Now, I guess I should have got a pot for demonstration. But you've seen my pot and you've seen how many sticks of butter I put in my pot in my butter video. And then I have a deeper stock pot now that I can put about 20 pounds in it if I wanted to. Okay, and as long as I stand there and babysit it, keep that fire on low and stir it, turn the fire off if I need to, it's going to be okay. All right, so you all, if you don't want the butter to start browning, you literally have to babysit that butter or it's going to start to burn just a little bit at the bottom of the pot. And then when you start scooping and stirring and all of that, now you're pulling that butter up from the bottom that burned, and that's what's going in your jars as well. Okay? But don't throw it out. It's not bad. Okay? All right. My butter is separating. It's like it's claret looking. And I know why it does that. Because if you are wiping your jars, your rims, as you fill the jars, if you wipe your rims with paper towels with vinegar in it, and it gets a few drops of vinegar in it, it is going to cause the butter to start to separate. You're going to see more oil on the top and then milk solids mostly down here. That's not a problem. Just keep shaking it until it starts to solidify. It'll be fine. That little vinegar is not going to hurt it. Those few little drops is not going to hurt it. It's just separating as a result of vinegar getting into the butter, but it's not a big deal. I've done that too, okay? So you just shake, 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 and once you shake it and it starts to solidify, you won't even be able to tell, all right? All right. My butter won't solidify, Mrs. H. I've been shaking it and shaking it and shaking it, and it won't solidify. Believe it or not, the humidity plays a major part in that, okay? Now look at my butter. Show y'all something. Oh, you probably can't tell it because it's beginning to solidify. But I canned this butter yesterday. It's been done. And it is slowly, look, here's one. It's slowly solidifying because it's hot and humid. And that will happen. And I'm not concerned about that because I'll just let it continue to solidify on its own. And I'll just make sure that there are no milk solids sitting at the bottom. If so, I'm just going to keep shaking it. Now, the quickest way to do this, if you got the room, is to shake it, pop the jars in the refrigerator, keep an eye on them, come back every hour or so and shake it again and leave them in the refrigerator until they solidify, and then you can put them away, okay? But the humidity and the temperature inside the house will play a part in that as well, okay? That is not a big deal. They will solidify. And if they don't, it's still not a big deal. Your butter is still canned and it's preserved, okay? So you don't have to worry about that, all right? Now, my butter, I've canned it. Is it going to go bad after a year? No, it's not. Now, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it's not if you do it the way that I do it. I can't speak for any other way. You know, I can't say if you water bath it, if it won't go bad or go rancid in a year. I can't say if you pressure can it maybe for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or not at all. You know, I can't say that it won't. But for me, I can my butter just like I'm canning meat in my pint-sized jars, and I process them for 75 minutes. And processing them for 75 minutes, I have been able to keep my butter for a minimum of 5 years. And that is in a cool, dry, dark place, okay? You can't just sit these out on the shelf, on the counter, and allow light to get to them. You have to keep them in the cupboard or in the cabinet where it's nice and dark, and in a cool place as well. Make sure it's dry, no moisture. And these jars will last you. I'm proof. I done it 5 years minimum, and I don't know if it would have lasted longer because I opened my last jar at 5 years. Okay, so I don't know. All right, I'm having to start again with my butter. Okay, all right. Now I think that was all my questions about canning butter that I've gotten so many times. Do you have to pressure can it? A lot of people do not. I do. I pressure can it, okay? But you don't it's up to you. It's totally up to you. All right? But for me, I prefer to can my butter under pressure at 75 minutes for pints. Mrs. H, would you recommend quart-sized jars? No, I would not recommend quart-sized jars. I've never done quart-sized jars of butter, and that's a lot of butter once you open the jar. That's a lot of butter, okay? Now, oh, and another question. Once I open the jar, can I leave it on the counter? No, you cannot. Once you have opened your canned jar of butter, there's no longer a seal anymore. This jar now has to go in the refrigerator, okay? Can you do smaller jars than this? Yes. I would love to do half pints of garlic butter with this, or half pints of a rosemary butter with this, you know, canning it, pressure canning it, right? I would love to do that. And I would still process those half pints for 75 minutes. Yes, I would. Okay. But making like a garlic butter spread or a rosemary, whatever kind of herbal butter you want to make, you can do that in the half pints is what I would recommend, or pints, whatever you choose. But I will still process them for 75 minutes. Okay? All right, y'all. So hopefully I have answered your questions and your concerns about pressure canning butter. Mrs. H, some people don't can their butter at all. They just melt it and put it in a jar. Is that safe to do? I don't know. Now, I've never done that, so I can't tell you that from experience. But if you watch other YouTubers who have canned it that way, they'll tell you they've never had a problem. So you can probably take what they say into consideration, but I cannot give you any direction on that because I don't know. I've always pressure canned my butter as if I was canning meat. Okay? All right, you all. So I hope I have answered all of your questions and all of the concerns you may have about pressure canning butter. Thank you to everybody who has been following our journey. Thank you to our wonderful subscribers, new and existing. We appreciate each and every one of you. So don't forget, hit the thumbs up, hit that notification bell if you are new to subscribing. You won't miss a single video we upload to our channel, hopefully. All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much for watching Homestead Heart. Peace and blessings to each and every one of you. I'm going to see y'all in the next video.